John 15:26, Jesus said, "But the Comfort, which is the Holy Ghost, whom the Father will send in my name, he shall teach you all things, and bring all things to your remembrance, whatsoever I have said unto you." So we're in a time now of the great remembrance. It's kind of how I look at it, the great awakening, you know. A lot of people, they never went to sleep. There's places in the world where I believe people have been able to hide from the mental enslavement that has been put upon them, that has kept them asleep. So the great awakening that we're going through now, or the great remembrance is what I would say, because you're remembering, we're starting to remember where we really came from, you know, is right now, because you can see a lot of people woke up at different times, even went back to sleep. You know, I would have to say I was fairly awake when I was younger in New Zealand. You know, I thought very similar as I did now, and I definitely went to sleep when I had to fit in this society that I'm in. Just like to be able to, you know, buy my property, run my company, and all those things. I had to, you know, in a sense, I didn't have to, but I ended up falling asleep again, in a sense. And I guess I never really did completely fall asleep, because I've always had this like part of me that just wanted nothing to do with the Babylon, you know. And you know, I definitely, let's say, stopped fighting. Maybe I didn't go fully asleep, but I stopped fighting. You know, I started to just get involved, and I wasn't taking the time to realize that I was where I was heading, you know. However, now, or since December 2020 was when I had my true awakening, where I realized and I saw things. It was like a true remembering of my DNA and the knowledge that came with my DNA. And I believe a lot of people are going through that right now, and they don't understand, in a sense. And a lot of people are probably hiding from it. You know, I encourage people to not. And these are the times where we do have to think about who we have around us and what their energy is doing to us. And I know part of becoming a strong being is being able to be resilient against people's dark energies. However, we have to realize is we're not able to fully guard ourselves from those energies. You know, we are getting something from it. It may take some time before you notice, but you are becoming affected by it. And I suggest, especially those people that are around you that are gaslighting your, all of a sudden, your ability to use your intuition. You know, if they start to gaslight your intuition, you're around the wrong people. Because we're learning to use this thing, this intuition. We have to really, if people really care about us, they'd help us with the perception of that intuition, you know? However, if they're just gonna gaslight it and you know, call you crazy or just like make fun of you or whatever those tactics they use, then they're not willing to be there during your awakening, because we're there for each other in these situations. And there's many of us that are awakening that have had to throw a lot of our friends and family into the past because of and I'm saying this is unconditioned. They don't really understand that they're doing this. You know, it's an unconscious thing, you know, but when they're gaslighting us, they're not helping. So one of the biggest things is listen to that voice inside you, not the voices around you, you know, and that voice inside you, remember, like, it can be, you'll notice when it's sinister and when it's being a little rascal, And you'll know when that voice is being an angel. But that's what this awakening is we're becoming connected to our hearts again. And when we live in our brain, when they can keep us in fear and they keep us, running to try to pay the rent and feed the kids, all these things, and like keep us fighting against each other by, putting the unvaccinated against the vaccinated, or the abortion against people that don't want abortions, like all that stuff, right? It's all games to divide us and keep us angry and fearful, so we can't live in love, which is in our hearts. And unfortunately, we have to share this space with our community. And our children are going to be in schools with these other children. So there is a necessity for us to what we're learning and that voice that's coming in. There's a necessity for us to pass it on. If you do not give out the pearls that have been given to you to the world, I believe that it'll stop coming. You have to prime the pump, and it's also a karma thing, right? So I think we can easily just hide in our groups and just be like so excited about the Great Awakening and this new world we're going into, and get ready together for that. However, the true warriors, let's say the ones that are going into past the lines, into the psychologically past lines of comfort, to try to pull people out of the battlefield and back into their awakening. I think that when you can come up with a very solid and logical and rational thing to say to somebody that's been gaslighting you, and they may run from you because you do that, but those words, because of how strong and rational and all that truthful they are, their reaction is proof that you've helped kill that demon that is possessing them and keeping them from awakening. There is a time where, just like in the Bible, you have to know that there's pearls upon swine. And I think that we definitely have to think about that when we're one-on-one with somebody. But when we're in groups where there's lots of people talking or watching the conversation, right? It's our job as the warriors, and that's standing in for the polarities, that's standing up for the polarities of every situation, is to speak up for the people that aren't courageous enough to speak up in that time. Because there is somebody else that's thinking very similar to you, and they'll be so happy that you've said it. It's not about changing the minds, and that's the pearls upon swine thing. However, if they're going to be throwing out pathological ideologies in groups, as a spiritual warrior, it's our job to come at them with the logos, right? Which is using logic and reason and truth and humility to bring the words of God to flesh. And if they are not willing to go into the logos with you, and they go straight into, straight into gaslighting and straw manning and calling you names and all those other things, then you know that it is pearls upon swine, and you've already shown the people in the room that this person has no ability to talk about what they're speaking about, and you've done what you need to do, and that's taking care of or taking out a demon. And that's not the person, it's the ideology is the demon. When you're possessed by an ideology to the point where you can't even explain it yourself in a situation, when somebody actually challenges you on it, then that means that probably needs to die, right? And that be a part of the exorcism, because we need to kill off a lot of these spirits in ourselves that are keeping us from uniting with people, because the only way we're going to conquer these people is coming together. And I think there's going to be a group of people that are just not going to change, and they're going to fall down the either they're going to be just doing nothing at all and trying to do nothing at all, so they don't have to think, and so they don't have to be a part of the mess. They're going to be a part of the evil, or they're going to be a part of the good. And when you challenge an ideology in somebody, it's crazy how quick Satan will show its face. However, you may have said something that has set that demon to run eventually. So the Great Awakening is the ability to get past our traumas. It's the past our traumas. Sorry, the other way to look at it is when we finish dealing with our traumas, which usually our ideologies are emotionally connected to it, then we can start to be open again instead of programmed and closed off. I humor almost any idea if I don't have the proof for anything on either side of it. I don't believe, for example, I don't believe the world is flat. It just intuitively, and it seems like we figured this out a long time ago, that we are on a globe and there's a universe and all this other stuff. However, I'm going to be honest, when I watch some really good people talking about flat Earth, I could almost be tricked into that easy, or I'm open to that. And when I listen to the signs on both sides of things, you know what I mean? I still believe the globe part, but I still have to admit a lot of the signs I don't understand enough to discern the difference. Okay? And we have to be humble enough to know that. There is things that are still just obvious to me, but still we have to be that humble, and that's where this wisdom comes from, right? And that's what this Bible passage is talking about, is gaining a relationship with God, and then remembering all about everything that you need to remember. He will give it to you, it all to you. And some of Eastern practices call it being connected to the Akashic records, right? Some call it being connected to the collective consciousness. Some believe that the knowledge is in the earth, and we're gaining it from the energy of the earth. There's some that believe it's passed down through our bloodlines, and that's where the knowledge is. Another part of the Great Awakening is awakening to the five-dimensional consciousness, some people call it, or the being truly conscious of something more than just this physical world. And it partly when you become connected to the Akashic records, or whatever you wish to call it starts to become proof. Because when you start to get this knowledge or this remembrance, you're like, hey, I have never read that or learned that. Where did that come from? How come this is like, it's going to be, when you start to remember, and realize that all the stuff we learned is potentially blocking us from remembering. You'll see the proof. And then you will be the proof. And a lot of people will never believe the 5-dimensional consciousness thing. They'll never even believe the collective consciousness thing, you know. However, what you can do is we can, you know, show with our actions. Show, you know, with a connection to God. Either it becomes being connected to a fearless warrior, right? And I'm talking about a spiritual warrior, but that we have to be in these times. This is a spiritual war. Communism and all the stuff, all the controls, all the things like that is battling people's connection to God. And we need to. I really believe in the power of music, and we've seen, like, I think it was a rock band in Europe that helped shut down communism. Like, I'll try to find the name of the band. I'll put it down below also. But you know, we have to be a part of bringing this down. I think art is going to be it. Like Louis Riel said, "My people will sleep for 100 years, and when they awake, it will be the artist. When the people awaken, it'll be the artist that awakens them." And so that's where, like, I look at Rastafari, and almost 100 years after his death, or probably 100 years after he said that, is when Rastafari movement blasted through the world, you know, and art and music and fighting against the Babylon, you know, that's the righteous path right now. Creating a new system that's not based on these controls, right? Because if we want to keep awakening and keep on downloading this knowledge, then we have to make sure that we don't fall into fear, back into fear or anger, hatred. All of these dark things that comes from the Satan in us, the dark evil that, you know, we have to, if we can keep those, mitigate those feelings, and that means, you know, getting ourselves at a safer place. You know, what happens if power goes out? What if this happens? You know, food, people having extra food, you know, making sure that next year you got chickens or whatever way to take care of yourself. Whenever you plan ahead and set yourself up, you make sure that you don't go into these fears. When you meditate every day, and when you speak, and when you talk with people, you're cleaning your closet, and you're keeping things, you're maintaining these kind of this clutter in your life that can cause a stop in the Great Awakening. Because if you go back into fear and go back into all of these things, then the pump is going to get shut off, and, you know, you can go back asleep. You know, you'll never ever go completely back asleep, because once you've seen certain things and felt certain things, you will never be able to doubt them again. However, this world and all the pressures upon us, our family, our friends, our financial well-being, all of this stuff can be enough pressure to stop the pump. And if you stop the pump after you know how powerful it is, it can be psychologically really hard to the longer you you stay in that fear cycle, the longer you stay in those cycles, the harder it will be to get the pump to turn back on. Some may never turn the pump back on if they allow them to get themselves too deep. That's why, you know, when you start falling into certain fears, recognize them and meditate on them right away, so you can try to realize how you can get past them. You know? So it's there's a certain amount of that we have to. The more that we are taking care of ourselves, the more we're independent and not relying on people. Again, the more that we can be. Stay in that awakening phase, or that, you know, has. If you rely on a person, then you may not have the ability to be fully truthful with that person. If you have an employer that is one of those people that's gaslighting you, for example, and you know that if you said something, then you'd lose your job, but it's still harming you because you're working with them every day and they're doing this to you, then you have to find another job. This is because you're dependent on somebody that is blocking you. Don't be dependent on anybody that is blocking you, because either you have to be two-faced with the person, or you have to shut yourself off, and both of those are not good ideas. So much love and God bless. And if anybody ever needs to talk about some of these awakening symptoms that they've been having, you can contact me, and we can talk too, because it's about, we have to help each other through this hard time, because there's symptoms to this, and there's feelings, and there's things that are only people that have had this awakening are going to be able to help you understand. So have a beautiful day. And it's Canada Day, so happy Canada Day.